Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast, right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, brought to you by GamblersWorld.net. And my guest today, Mr. Paul Bovi, the sharpest of sharp guys out there in terms of sports betting. And he's got a lot of props for us today. And if you followed the shows over the course of the year, Paul is really good at NFL props. And I even have a couple. As much as I lambaste people for props over the course of the year, you know what? I'm starting to see the light because in a situation like this, Paul, where we're pretty much resigned to a side total or money line pick could be prevalent because the point spread's not that heavy. It opens up the door for more options. And anytime you give guys like us more options, we're able to locate and isolate betting value much, I shouldn't say easier, but we're more inclined to find betting value the more options we get. Agree or no?
Absolutely. It's a different world because if you went back to the 80s, your only option was side total. And then all of a sudden, things really started to open up. That first Super Bowl with Refrigerator Perry, whether he'd score a touchdown or not. And it just blossomed from there. So, yeah, props give us another option. And right now, you're up to what? 5, 6, 700 of them at cross sport props, national anthem props. So you just can pick from a huge menu. So you're not forced to take a side that you may not have a strong decision about.
Yeah, you're not going to get us to give you a coin flip prop or a national anthem time at a national anthem prop. We stick to the skilled stuff we can analyze and break down to come to an intelligent decision. So there's guesses, and then there's strategic ways to go about picking winning props, and that's what we're going to stick to. So, Paul, why don't you start us out here and give us a couple props for the Super Bowl on Sunday, and then we'll go back to me and then back to you again.
Well, you just made a point, Ross. I look at this game and I cannot decipher clearly a side that I like. And when that happens, I don't force a play. I can make a case for both teams, for and against. I don't think anybody would argue that San Francisco is fortunate. They're very fortunate to be here. They just skated by the Green Bay Packers and then came back from the abyss against the Lions on the strength of a deflected pass that somehow landed in the hands of Ayuk, and then post that a turnover on or about the 20-yard line and a quick score, and the game completely flipped. On the other side, I look at Kansas City, and of course they've had offensive liabilities the entire year. They have moved the football not on a regular basis. We all remember how the year started off with that loss to Detroit, nationally televised, but things have changed over the last several weeks and they've gotten better. Not remarkably better, but they have certainly improved. And one of those improvements has been by way of Pacheco, who's carried the ball over the last 9 games 160 times for 730 yards, and also Rashid Rice. In the first 10 games, only 36 receptions. The last 9, he's had 63. So Kansas City has come around. They've done better. And I'll lean into a few props. And the first one I like on the strength of that improvement in the offense for the Chiefs, I like their team total over. Now, I grabbed a very nice number, 22.5. It keeps us under that key number of 24, which is 3 touchdowns and a field goal, which I like. I don't like going over the 24 just because you generally have to get to 27. So I'm going to go with the Chief team total over. San Francisco has struggled defensively, especially against the run in these playoffs. They've given up 273 yards on 45 carries. And even if you backed out the 53-yard run by Aaron Jones, it's still a 4.3-yard average. So Pacheco should have a decent game here, but I'm going to lean on the running back for the Chiefs, Pacheco, to go over on his carries as well. Now, if you look at the number now, and I got 15.5, but the prevailing number at this point is 16.5. In the first, I think it was 8 games, he went under that 16.5 7 times. But recently, he has carried the ball a lot more. He's went over this number, I believe, 4 straight times or thereabouts. I might be wrong on that. On the Bills game, I think he had 15, but they only ran.
He had 81 carries in the last 4 games alone.
Right. And the Bills game was 15. And the reason he only carried the ball 15 times is because they only ran 47 plays, and 6 of them accounted for half of the 361 yards. So the Bills, by the way, that game ran 78 plays. So there was a huge disparity. And then he went under against Las Vegas. And the reason for that was, with 11 carries, is they were playing from a 10-point deficit. But he's gone over the 16.5, 5 out of the last 9. And I think Kansas City will want to take the air out of the football, run it successfully, which they've been able to do recently. And you want to hope here that Kansas City does get the kickoff, because if you get a few first downs, you might be able to knock out 4 or 5 carries out of the way without the risk of San Francisco taking the lead. And the point I would make here is that a lot of these prop bets are correlated. So if you like the 49ers to take a commanding lead or win the game convincingly, you don't want to play this prop, because obviously there would be more passing on the part of Patrick Mahomes if they were trailing. So that's one thing you want to look out for with these props. The same thing applies if you're playing passing props. You generally don't want the winning quarterback, because back a few years ago when Kansas City lost convincingly to Tampa Bay, their whole offensive line was out. I think Patrick Mahomes threw for 270 and Tom Brady only threw for 202. So keep an eye on the correlation factor with these props. But I'm going Pacheco over on carries and Kansas City team total over the 22.5.
Very nice. Pacheco over. What was he over and under on the carries? I'm sorry.
Well, I got 15.5. The number now widely available is 16.5. So that's the one we're using. And as you know, last game, although he only ran for 68 yards, he carried the ball 24 times. He's been a horse of late. And one thing I want to point out, I think there's a little bit of nervousness that he is injured because they've had this toe ankle designation. But mind you, before he carried the ball 24 times against the Ravens, they had that same designation. So I'm not buying what they're selling. I believe he's healthy. He will play, and there'll be no drop-off.
Yeah, as opposed to college football, the NFL is full transparency when it comes to injuries. So even if it's the minor variety, they have to be transparent about it. And, you have to decipher what a serious injury is and what it's not. And based on his workload over the last 4 games and how productive he's been, I would have to say that whatever's bothering him isn't hindering his performance. So I think that's a no-brainer. I'm going to piggyback off of that, Paul. You mentioned Pacheco's workload going up, and like I mentioned earlier when I interjected, he's carried the ball 81 times over the last 4 games. That's an average of 20.3 yards per carry, which goes hand in hand with Paul going over the 16.5 carries. Also, the fact that San Francisco, as good as they were defensively throughout the regular season, and especially so against the run, that hasn't been the case in the 2 playoff games. As a matter of fact, the Lions in Green Bay, they ran the ball for a combined, I don't have that number in front of me, but it's somewhere around the area of 320 yards. And I know that they've averaged, the 2 opponents they face in the playoffs, being Detroit and Green Bay, averaged 6.1 yards per rush. So the increase with Pacheco's workload, the fact of he's rushed for 68 yards or more in his last 4 games, And then also account for the fact that the Kansas City offense has adjusted accordingly too, because if you look at their season average, Kansas City's only run the ball a little over 40% of their offensive plays. Over the last 4 games, they've ran the ball for around 46% of their offensive plays. So Andy Reid, the play caller, has made a commitment to running the ball and protecting his defense, and knowing that he doesn't have the elite passing game he once had. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have an elite passer. He's got one of the best, Patrick Mahomes. But the wide receiver situation has left a lot to be desired all year long. And you mentioned Rashid Rice. His productivity has increased considerably over the last half of the year. And you got to equate that to he was a rookie. So the more he got comfortable in the system, the more trust level you got with Mahomes, the better Mahomes trusted him, the more he threw to him, and the more productive the kid became. But having said that, and I'm getting off kilter there, I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco over 68.5 yards rushing, and that's at money line odds of -120. My other prop that I'm going to use, if you want to call it a prop, is the team total for San Francisco, which right now at Bet Online is 24.5. And to go over that or under that number is at money line odds of -120. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it real simple. Kansas City's allowed 27 points or fewer in all 20 games they played this year, which includes the postseason. As a matter of fact, they've allowed 24 points or fewer in 19 of their 20 games this year. And also consider the fact, what I just mentioned, their increase in terms of the percentage of offensive plays they run the ball as opposed to passing now, and they've been effective running the ball, and it's resulted in valuable time of possession, although they only had the ball for 23 minutes against Buffalo. That was the exception to the rule. So this total of 24.5, and they have not, Paul, I didn't realize this. You look at Kansas City's numbers defensively, they haven't allowed over 259 yards passing all season long. Okay. So this, San Francisco's got that potent passing game, and also, you throw that in with McCaffrey. But the bottom line is that this team hasn't allowed a 300-yard passer all year long. They've allowed 259 or less all year. As a matter of fact, the season high 259 came way back in week 5 against Minnesota. So this defense has been getting it done. I like Isaiah Pacheco for all the reasons I just mentioned, which piggybacks off what Paul just said. And I do believe, I agree with Paul, that at Kansas City, they don't want to get in the track meet with San Francisco in this game, in my opinion. Okay, and we'll hear Paul's opinion on that in a second. But the bottom line is San Francisco's got a lot more explosiveness in terms of the passing game and at the wideout positions. And Kansas City could ill afford to get in and think they're going to win a game 35-31. So as a result, I just think that, and the key is going to be, like Paul touched upon briefly, he went and said, well, if they get the opening kickoff, that would help a lot. The key is going to be, as long as Kansas City either gets out to a lead or is able to keep it a one-score game throughout, in terms of if they fall behind, keeping it within a score. I think they're going to stick to the running game. I think they're going to be effective. I think they're going to control the clock. And I think San Francisco will be hard-pressed to top the 24.5 point total here. So I'm going to go with San Francisco under 24.5 points at money line odds of -120, and Isaiah Pacheco over 68.5 yards rushing at money line odds of -120. Paul, your retort to that, and also I know you have further props that you want to discuss, so take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so I quoted, I think, 45 carries for 273, and then I backed out Aaron Jones's run, and I think you quoted a little higher. I tend to eliminate the quarterback runs, and there was a 42-yard scamper in there by one of the Detroit receivers. I believe it was Williams, Jameson. So I back that out as well because I try to like eliminate big plays that skew the numbers. So I used 45, 273, and still when you back out Jones, it's it comes out to a healthy 4.3 yards of rush. So I agree with you on Pacheco as far as over the number. You could actually do better than 68.5 right now. I did play that as well, 68.5. It went to 70.5, backed off to 65.5 in spots where it sits now at a couple places. And
I
in
take
large
that back.
part,
It was over 66.5 yards is my play, not
oh,
68 and a
okay.
half. I misquoted that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
the number softened with the injury being out in the air, which I mentioned. I don't think is relevant. And yeah, San Francisco clearly has the advantage in skill position players when you look, but clearly the advantage belongs to Kansas City with respect to the quarterback position. So again, that's the reason why I oscillated between each side and don't have one in this particular game. But I have more props, and one of the props I'm going to be playing is an interception thrown by Brock Purdy. Now, if you clearly look at the statistics, you wouldn't play this because this year, 33 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And at that point, you have to feel as though, okay, this guy is not mistake prone. But I laid $1.06 on this, and you could still get $1.12, $1.10, $1.05, possibly if you shop around. But he's got some tendencies which I believe will lend to an interception here. Beyond the fact that it's his first full season, this is a monumental stage. One thing Kansas City excels at is putting pressure on the quarterback. They have 57 sacks this year, 60 quarterback knockdowns. That's sixth in the league. 181 pressures, quarterback pressures. That's second in the league to only the Lions at 187. So I think you're going to see Purdy under siege here. He also tends to float the ball at times. He also throws across his body occasionally. He's got, some habits that he will eventually have to break. And there's been a number of dropped interceptions here. So I think he will throw one. I think you're getting a cheap number here. Kansas City pressure will also lend to him dumping the ball down to McCaffrey. And McCaffrey's number from a passing yardage standpoint is 35.5. And I like that number. If you look at the Buffalo game, Kansas City gave up 8 receptions out of 10 targets to the 3 backs. That included Latavius Murray. And then in the Cincinnati game, Mixon and Chase, 6 targets, 6 receptions. They allow passes to the backs, and obviously McCaffrey is better than all those guys, and I feel he will break one, and I feel he will be forced to throw the ball, Purdy will, and release it early. Who do you release it early to? Well, maybe Juszczyk, but more than likely it's going to be McCaffrey. There's a couple other props that I do like and lean on here, and one of those, I took Harrison Butker, Kansas City, to have the longest field goal. Now, I got a good number on this. I laid $1.15. This is higher now. It's probably $1.28. Do I think he gets it? Yes, I do. Would I go above $1.23 or $1.22, $1.24? No, I would not. So this is one you're going to have to shop around. And the reason is that Jake Moody's a rookie. Now, he made 21 of 25 this year. That's pretty good, 57 and a 55-yarder as well. But you're looking at Butker, who is 28 years old and made, I think it was 33 of 36. He's got 2 60-yarders on his resume over the last 2 years. This year, a 62-yarder, along with a pair of 56s and a 54. And I just see Moody. He's a little bit tentative at times. His kicks have not all been that crisp. And if you look at who they have as a punter, Wisnowski, he's only punted into the end zone twice out of 52. So I think Shanahan would bypass a very long field goal in favor of the opportunity to pin the opposition inside the 10 or the 5-yard line with a punter that just doesn't kick it into the end zone. So I think you would see Andy Reid opt for a field goal of 56, 57 yards here. Now, there is a little luck here because you have a situation where you don't know where these drives will stall out. But I think there's such a divide in these kickers, and I have to go with Butker here for the longest field goal. Speaking of punters, Wisnowski opened up longest punt, net punt 55 yards. That's just gotten away. It's now 57 and a half, and it's a big difference if you look down his docket of kicking this year. You don't want to go over the 57 and a half, but what you could do is lay 380 and that he does not have a touchback here. And considering that he's punted 52 times and only had 2 touchbacks, I think that's pretty good value. But most people want the lottery ticket, so they'll take the plus money. But if you're willing to lay 380 and you're daring, this is a pretty good lay.
Yeah, and when you say 57 and a half yards, that's net, folks. That's not gross. So whatever the net is at the end of the kick is what counts. And the net also counts. The return counts in that equation too. So basically, he has to have one kick to go 58 yards or more and be non-returnable, or with the return, it averages or it comes to a net of 58 yards. And that's a difficult thing to do. Not to say it's not been done, but then also you look at the amount of punts he's had that Paul just brought up. He's 52 punts, I believe you said, Paul, for the entire year. And that's in 19 games. That's less than 3 punts a game, folks. So, and again, if Kansas City does what I think they're going to do and try to play time of possession, and like you just said, with the place kicker, with the San Francisco's punter so adept at pinning teams inside the 20 and only having 2 touchbacks all year, certainly that weighs heavily in whether you want to try a long field goal or punt and play field position. So all good stuff, Paul. Great stuff, actually. And,
I actually have one more point on these punts. I found a prop, and if you wanted to take both kickers not to have a touchback, the numbers this year are 111 punts and 7 touchbacks. And I actually laid $1.65 on the no, which to me, 7 out of 111 laying $1.65, that's pretty good value. I may not be right on this, but that's what the game's about. You have to find value where the numbers are in your favor. Again, the minus 380. Yeah, it's a hefty number, but it makes sense. It's just like on the safety. If you could lay 8 to 1 on the safety, on no safety, you're much better off because most people want to take the lottery ticket and get exponential return on their money. So they bet the safety, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a very, if you look at the point spread, and you look at, I don't think there's going to be many people out there that are going to be predicting a lopsided game one way or the other. You may even want to look at taking a small shot at the game going overtime as opposed to no overtime, which is astronomical odds. You can get some plus money on the game going overtime. And again, it comes down to money management, right? You're going to make larger bets on a lot of your props that you really like. And that's what I call a flyer, but a flyer that makes sense. I mean, we're not talking about a New York Giants Super Bowl where New England was laying 14 to 16 points in a couple of those game matchups. So this is reasonable, and we'll see what happens. But Paul, tell the folks a little bit about what you may have coming up. I know you've been dabbling into some NBA of late. You may want to tell them how you've been doing with that and what you may have coming up or in store for the weekend.
Well, I might add a few props. I might not. I've given out quite a few here, and I think these are pretty solid. But on the NBA, yes, I have been sparingly posting plays that I really like. Last week, I think we went 2-0. I lost the game on Sunday, unfortunately. Friday night, I had the Magic plus a 7. They won the game outright. They beat the T-Wolves. And so I look for spot plays in the NBA. I'm not going to be a volume poster, but I'm going to be an effective poster, and I'm looking for a higher percentage, and we'll win a few games. I could tell you, because anything I play, I'm going to be playing with my own money. And I did have the Magic pretty good on the money line and straight. So I'm going to be looking, and don't look for a play every single day. It won't be there, but every 2-3 days you'll see an NBA play pop up, and you can hop on it and know that my money is there too.
There you go. So if you're wondering, Paul, we always have brought to your attention, he's broadcasting from Mexico because that's where he resides. He's got a beautiful place right on the ocean. But today he's at Wrigley Field in front of the center field wall with the ivy in the background. But you can find me over at gamblersworld.net as well. I will have a Super Bowl total and I will have a Super Bowl side. I like both, so very seldom I like both the side and the total in a Super Bowl, but this is one of those years. And I'll have some props as well. In addition to what I give you on free props during the course of this week. I will be with Doug Upstone on Thursday doing more NFL props. I'll be with Jesse and Sean on Friday on our live show. We'll be giving out more NFL or Super Bowl props at that time. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Paul, because here's what I would like to do. Paul will join us periodically through the NBA playoffs, okay? On occasion, time is availability taken into account. And I'd love to have you when the Triple Crown races come up, because if you don't know it already, folks, he's one of the best horse handicappers in the country as well. And he loves his horses. So, Paul, if indeed it's if it's convenient, we'd love to have you for the Kentucky Derby and the other two big stakes races. So, what say you?
Well, I will keep it in mind, but I'm going to be very straight with you. I play horses a different way, and these big races, I've been fairly successful at them, but in these big races, I generally don't have a straight up play. I play a lot of head-to-head matchups. Okay.
All right.
That's the way I like to play it. I generally do better with claimers and allowance races. These big races, I hate to say this, but it's like amateur hour, and it's extremely competitive. So you got huge fields in the Kentucky Derby. So there's a lot of racing luck. I remember a few years ago, I had a huge bet, thought I was cashing a monster ticket. And Rich Strike comes up the rail and beats me. And it would have been into 5 figures. It would have been a really nice ticket. I did have Medina Spirit. It was a huge bet. So I have caught a few, but it's generally not my forte. But if I have anything strong, I will certainly pop my head up.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I mean, the breakdown of the race itself and the possibilities is something that I would be more inclined for you to educate the viewers on, because like you alluded to, and I'm one of them, I'm one of those guys that plays the Triple Crown races, and that's about the size of it throughout the course of the year. So we'll discuss that at a further time. But again, Paul, thank you for joining us all football season. I know the viewers really enjoy you, and the views that we get on our podcast I do with you speak volumes. And you're a true pro, and you're going to be with us for as long as you want to be. Okay. And we'll touch base around the Triple Crown races. Hopefully, we'll get you in here for a couple NBA playoff shows. Again, with your availability kept in mind. And but take care, my friend. We appreciate you very much. Great job all year long.
Thanks a lot, Ross, and I look forward to working with you for a long time.
And I look forward to it as well. All right, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please take a second to do so. You'll see a black subscribe button right underneath your video box. If you're on your PC, that black subscribe button won't be there, but there is a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It serves the same purpose. Absolutely 100% free, no strings attached, no hidden agenda, folks. And if you subscribed already, we appreciate you. If you just subscribed, we appreciate that as well. But here's the message I want to tell you. Make your life easier. Go into your YouTube settings and click on the alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our 5 to 6 weekly podcasts going up on our channel. Also, folks, there's a like button right underneath. You click on that. It makes us happy. Old guys like me and Paul, it doesn't take us much to make us happy at this stature of our life. And it's just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put in to bringing you a quality podcast each and every day. And our theme will always be, and it continues to be and always has been, we want to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. Until the next time, for Paul Bovi and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.